The notification came at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, which should have been my first warning that nothing good ever happens at that hour. I was hunched over my laptop in the tiny back office of Cafe Marcello, reconciling the day's receipts, while the night cleaning crew worked in the dining room. Numbers had always made sense to me in a way people never did. Columns added up correctly, or they didn't. No gray area, no emotional manipulation disguised as concern. My phone buzzed against the scarred wooden desk. Instagram. I almost ignored it. Social media at 3 a.m. was never anything urgent, but the preview made my stomach drop. Bradley Cohen tagged you in a post. Bradley, my ex-boyfriend of 4 years, the man who'd spent the last 2 of those years systematically destroying my self-esteem, while I convinced myself it was love. I shouldn't have opened it. Should have deleted the notification and gone back to my spreadsheets. But curiosity and old wounds have a way of overriding common sense. The photo loaded slowly on the cafe's terrible Wi-Fi, giving me time to brace myself. It didn't help. There I was, caught mid-laugh at his company picnic 8 months ago, before everything fell apart. The angle was deliberately unflattering, my double chin prominent, my arm looking twice its actual size pressed against my body, my dress clinging to every curve Bradley had spent years criticizing. The caption made my vision blur. Remember when I said I could fix her? Checked her profile, still fat and single. Dodged that bullet. Glow up challenge. Best decision ever. 43 likes already. Comments rolling in from people I'd once considered friends. Bro, you upgraded for sure. She really let herself go. Good for you, man. You deserve better. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. My hands shook as I set the phone down. The numbers on my laptop screen swam and blurred, meaningless now. 8 months. 8 months since I'd finally found the courage to leave after catching him in our bed with someone from his gym. 8 months of therapy and rebuilding and learning to look at myself without hearing his voice cataloging my flaws. And he'd just undone it all with one post. The worst part? He wasn't entirely wrong. I was still single. Still carrying the extra weight I'd gained during our relationship when food became the only comfort I had. Still living in the same studio apartment in Queens, still working the same job managing this cafe in Little Italy. Still exactly where he'd left me, apparently. I didn't cry. I'd learned early in my relationship with Bradley that crying only gave him ammunition. Instead, I closed my laptop with deliberate care, gathered my things, and locked up the office. The cafe sat on Mulberry Street, tucked between a pasta shop that had been there since 1952 and a boutique that changed owners every 6 months. At 3 a.m., the neighborhood was quiet except for the occasional taxi and the distant sound of garbage trucks making their rounds. I'd worked at Cafe Marcello for 6 years, starting as a server and working my way up to manager. The owner, Mrs. Rosa Marcello, was 73 and increasingly content to let me run things while she visited her grandchildren in New Jersey. It was steady work, decent pay, and I was good at it. But standing there on the empty street with Bradley's post burning in my mind, I felt the weight of every choice that had led me here. Every time I'd made myself smaller to fit into his vision of acceptable. Every meal I'd skipped trying to earn his approval. Every time I'd believed him when he said no one else would want me. My phone buzzed again. More comments on the post. I turned it off completely. The subway ride back to Queens was empty enough that I could spread out across 3 seats, which I did, taking up space in a way Bradley had trained me not to. He'd hated when I sprawled, as he called it. Said it was unladylike. Said it drew attention to my size. By the time I reached my apartment, the sun was starting to rise. I'd stopped checking Bradley's post after the notification count hit triple digits. Stopped torturing myself with comments from people who'd smiled to my face while dating him. then vanished the moment we broke up. Sleep didn't come. Instead, I lay in bed staring at my ceiling, replaying every moment of our relationship, cataloging all the red flags I'd ignored. The way he'd helpfully bought me gym memberships I never asked for. How he'd portion my food at restaurants for my health. The casual cruelty disguised as concern when he'd grab my stomach and ask when I was going to take care of this. I'd lost myself in that relationship. Became so focused on earning his approval that I forgot what I actually wanted from life. My phone, still off, sat on my nightstand like a bomb waiting to detonate. I didn't turn it back on until noon, and immediately wished I hadn't. 347 notifications. The post had gone viral in our social circle. Screenshots were being shared. Someone had created a meme. But there was one notification that stopped me cold. A Dominic Santoro commented on the post you're tagged in. I didn't recognize the name. Clicked through to the profile and found a private account with no profile picture, just a black square. 11 followers, following none. The kind of account that felt deliberate in its anonymity. His comment sat at the top of Bradley's post, somehow jumping ahead of all the others. Interesting perspective. My wife looks exactly like this, and she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Also, she's not single. We got married last month. Attached was a photo I'd never seen before. Me, walking out of Cafe Marcello 3 weeks ago, laughing at something Mrs. Marcello had said. I was wearing my favorite green dress, the one that Bradley had always hated because it emphasized the wrong things. My hair was pulled back in a messy bun, no makeup, completely natural. And I looked happy. Genuinely, radiantly happy in a way I barely recognized. The photo had been taken from across the street, professional quality but candid, almost like surveillance. My heart hammered against my ribs. Who the hell was Dominic Santoro? Why did he have photos of me? And why was he claiming to be my husband? The comments below his had exploded. Bro, what? Is this real? Bradley, you got played. She upgraded and you didn't even know. Bradley had responded, this is fake. Nice try, White Knight. She doesn't even know you. Dominic's reply was simple. Don't I? I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of what was happening. This had to be some kind of mistake. Or a prank. Or... My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Hello? Miss Reeves? The voice was male, professional, with the kind of authority that made you sit up straighter. My name is Marco Vitelli. I work for Mr. Santoro. He'd like to meet with you this afternoon to discuss the social media situation. I don't know anyone named Santoro, I said, my voice sharper than intended. And I'd like to know why he's posting photos of me online claiming we're married. Mr. Santoro will explain everything in person. Would 4 p.m. at Cafe Marcello work for you? How do you know where I work? A pause. Mr. Santoro makes it his business to know things. 4 p.m., Miss Reeves? Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, potentially dangerous. But curiosity warred with caution, and curiosity was winning. Fine, 4 p.m., but I want answers. You'll get them. The call ended before I could respond. I spent the next 3 hours spiraling between Google searches for Dominic Santoro, New York, and changing my outfit 6 times. The searches returned nothing helpful. Too common a name, too many results. The outfit crisis was just anxiety finding a physical outlet. Finally, I settled on black jeans and a burgundy sweater. Professional, but casual. The kind of thing you wore when you wanted to look put together, but not like you'd tried too hard. I arrived at Cafe Marcello at 3:45, letting myself in through the back entrance. Mrs. Marcello wouldn't be in until dinner service, which gave me the privacy to deal with whatever this was. At exactly 4 p.m., a black SUV pulled up outside. The kind with tinted windows and that aura of expense that made it clear this wasn't an Uber. Two men got out first. Both wore dark suits and moved with the controlled awareness of trained security. They scanned the street before one of them opened the rear door. The man who emerged made my breath catch. Dominic Santoro was perhaps 40, with dark hair silvering at the temples and the kind of face that belonged in classical paintings. Sharp features, olive skin, brown eyes that seemed to catalog everything in one sweep. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and he moved with the unconscious authority of someone used to being obeyed. He was, objectively, the most handsome man I'd ever seen in person, and he was walking toward my cafe like he owned the street. I met him at the door, arms crossed defensively. "Mr. Santoro." "Miss Reeves." His voice was deep, cultured, with the faintest hint of an accent I couldn't place. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." I didn't agree. I was ambushed. I stepped back to let him in, hyper-aware of the two security men taking positions outside. "Your employee didn't give me much choice." Marco can be assertive. A slight smile touched his lips, but his heart's in the right place. "Why are you posting photos of me online claiming I'm your wife?" Dominic moved through the cafe with the ease of someone comfortable in any environment. He chose a table near the window, settling into the chair with fluid grace. "May we sit?" "I'd prefer to stand." "As you wish." He gestured to the chair across from him anyway, though this conversation might take a while. Grudgingly, I sat. Up close, he was even more striking, and more intimidating. There was something in his eyes, a hardness beneath the polished exterior that suggested he was far more dangerous than his expensive suit implied. "I've been watching you for 3 months," he said without preamble. My blood ran cold. "Excuse me?" "Not in the way you're thinking." He leaned back, apparently at ease despite my obvious alarm. 3 months ago, you filed a police report against Bradley Cohen. Harassment, stalking, threatening messages after your breakup. How did he know about that? I'd filed the report after Bradley had shown up drunk outside my apartment for the 5th time, screaming about how I'd never find anyone else. The police had taken the report but told me there wasn't much they could do unless he physically threatened me. "The report was buried," Dominic continued. "Bradley's father plays golf with the precinct captain. Your complaint was filed and forgotten." "How do you know this?" "Because I make it my business to know when the system fails people." His brown eyes held mine. "Especially when those people work in my neighborhood." "Your neighborhood?" "I own most of the commercial real estate in Little Italy," he said simply, "including the building that houses this cafe. Mrs. Markello rents from one of my holding companies." The pieces started clicking together. Mrs. Markello had mentioned once that the building's owner was a good man, very fair with rent. I'd assumed she meant some distant property management company. "You're my landlord." "Indirectly. I try to be hands-off with tenants who pay on time and treat the properties well." He paused. "But I do keep an eye on the neighborhood. Make sure people are safe." "By photographing them without permission?" "By being aware of potential problems before they escalate." His expression hardened slightly. 3 months ago, Bradley Cohen was one of those problems, so I had someone keep an eye on the situation. Someone who took photos of me. Someone who documented that you were being harassed despite having filed an official complaint. Dominic pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. "Would you like to see the file we've compiled? 17 instances of Bradley violating the restraining order you were denied, 8 instances of him following you home, 3 instances of him entering this cafe and verbally abusing you in front of customers." My hands trembled. I remembered every single one of those incidents, had tried to convince myself they weren't that bad, that I was overreacting, that eventually Bradley would move on. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would you care about any of this?" Dominic set his phone down. Because men like Bradley Cohen operate with impunity as long as no one with real power pays attention. His father's money protects him. The system enables him. And women like you suffer, because speaking up gets you nowhere. Women like me. Strong women who deserve better than what they've been given. His gaze was steady, intense. You didn't deserve what he did to you, Miss Reeves. Not the emotional abuse, not the harassment afterward, and certainly not that post he made last night. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. So you decided to… what? Pretend to be my husband? How does that help? It helps because now Bradley Cohen knows that you're not alone and unprotected. Dominic's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. It helps because men like him only respect power, and now he thinks you have access to mine. But I don't even know you. Not yet. Something shifted in his expression. But I'd like to change that. This is insane. I stood abruptly, needing distance. You can't just insert yourself into my life because you've decided I need protection. I can't, he agreed, standing as well. Which is why I'm asking your permission. Permission for what? To help you deal with Bradley Cohen, to make sure he never bothers you again. Dominic moved closer, not threateningly, but with clear intent. To give you the tools to take back the narrative he's trying to control. I studied his face, searching for deception or hidden motives. What I found was harder to read. Determination, yes, but also something that looked almost like respect. What's in it for you? I asked. People don't do things like this without wanting something in return. What's in it for me is a neighborhood where people feel safe, where men like Bradley Cohen learn that there are consequences for their actions. He paused. And perhaps, selfishly, the satisfaction of watching a bully realize he's not untouchable. By pretending we're married. The marriage was improvisation. A hint of a smile. I saw the post, saw an opportunity to destabilize his narrative. The photo was already in the surveillance file. You genuinely looked happy that day, which rather contradicted his implication that you're miserable. I was happy, I said quietly. Mrs. Marcello had just told me she wanted to make me a partner in the cafe. 30% ownership if I can come up with the down payment. Interest flickered in Dominic's eyes. Congratulations, that's a significant achievement. One I've been working toward for 6 years. I wrapped my arms around myself. And then, Bradley posts that photo and suddenly I'm trending on Instagram for all the wrong reasons. Which is why we're going to correct the narrative. Dominic pulled out his phone again, showing me the screen. Your ex-boyfriend's post has been shared 847 times. My comment has been shared 1,203 times. People are already trying to figure out who I am, which means they're looking at you differently. He was right. I'd been so focused on the initial humiliation that I hadn't noticed the shift. The newer comments weren't mocking me. They were speculating about my mysterious husband. Let me help you, Dominic said. Not because you're helpless, but because you shouldn't have to fight this battle alone. I don't understand why you care this much. Something vulnerable flickered across his face, so quick I almost missed it. My sister was in a relationship like yours once. By the time our family realized how bad it was, she'd lost herself completely. It took years for her to recover. His jaw tightened. I couldn't help her then. I was too young, too powerless. But I can help now. I can make sure other women don't suffer the way she did. The honesty in his voice decided it for me. Okay, I said, but I have conditions. Name them. This stays professional. Whatever we're doing, it's not real. We're not actually married, we're not dating, we're just correcting a narrative. Agreed. I want to know everything you're planning before you do it. No more surprises. Fair. And when this is over, when Bradley's moved on and stopped harassing me, you walk away. No strings, no obligations. Dominic extended his hand. You have my word. I hesitated, then shook it. His grip was firm, warm, and sent an unexpected jolt through me. So what happens now? I asked. Now, Dominic said, his smile turning slightly wicked, we give the internet exactly what it wants. Proof that you're not just taken, you're thriving. He pulled out his phone and held it up, angling it to capture us both. May I? I moved closer, hyper-aware of how near he was, how good he smelled. Something expensive with notes of cedar and spice. His arm came around my shoulders, casual but possessive in a way that somehow didn't feel threatening. Smile, he said softly, like you did in that green dress. I did. And for the first time since seeing Bradley's post, I felt something other than humiliation. I felt powerful. Dominic took the photo, checked it, then showed me the screen. We looked good together. Natural. His arm around me, my genuine smile, both of us looking at the camera with the easy comfort of people who belonged in each other's space. Perfect, he said. I'll post this within the hour, along with a very clear message about respecting you. What kind of message? His smile was cold and dangerous, the kind that makes men like Bradley Cohen understand they've made a serious mistake. The post went live at 6:47 p.m., timed perfectly to catch the evening social media surge when people were decompressing from work, scrolling mindlessly through their feeds. I watched the numbers climb from the back office of Cafe Marcello, my laptop open to Instagram on one screen, the evening's reservation list on the other, trying to maintain normalcy while my life spun into surreal territory. Dominic had crafted the caption with surgical precision. To the man who thinks publicly humiliating women makes him superior. My wife is brilliant, beautiful, and worth 10 of you. She manages a successful business, treats people with genuine kindness, and has the courage you'll never possess. The courage to leave someone who didn't deserve her. The only thing she's is still too good for you. Do not contact her again. Do not post about her again. This is your only warning. The photo showed us together at the cafe, his arm around me, both of us looking directly at the camera with calm confidence. To anyone scrolling past, we looked like exactly what he'd claimed, a happily married couple unbothered by petty drama. Within 20 minutes, it had 5,000 likes. Within an hour, Bradley had deleted his original post. My phone rang. Mrs. Marcello calling from her daughter's house in Jersey. Sophia. Her voice crackled with excitement and confusion. Why didn't you tell me you got married? I had to hear about it from my grandson who saw it on the Instagram. Guilt twisted in my stomach. Mrs. Marcello had been more than an employer. She'd been a mentor, almost a grandmother figure since I'd started working here at 22. Mrs. Marcello, I need to explain. He's very handsome, this husband, and he says such nice things about you. When do I meet him properly? We must have a celebration. It's complicated, I said carefully. Can we talk when you're back tomorrow? Complicated how? Marriage is simple. You love someone, you commit, you build a life together. She paused. Unless, Sophia, this is real, yes? You're not in some kind of trouble? The concern in her voice made my throat tight. I'm not in trouble, I promise. But the marriage isn't exactly... It's more of an arrangement, to help with the situation. A long pause. Then quieter. The ex-boyfriend. The one who kept coming here making scenes. You knew about that? I'm old. Not blind. Her voice hardened. I was going to have my nephew talk to him, make him understand he wasn't welcome. But then he stopped coming, and I thought maybe he'd finally gotten the message. He posted something cruel online last night. Admitted. And Dominic, Mr. Santoro, he saw it and decided to help. Dominic Santoro! Mrs. Marcello's tone changed completely. The Dominic Santoro who owns half of Little Italy? You know him. Everyone knows of him. He bought this building 15 years ago when the previous owner was going to sell to developers who wanted to tear it down. He kept the rent fair, never raised it beyond reason. She paused. There are stories about his family, about the business they're in, but he's always been good to the neighborhood. Stories. Business. The careful way she spoke told me everything she wasn't saying directly. What kind of business? I asked, though I suspected I already knew. The kind where you don't ask too many questions, Mrs. Martello said gently, but also the kind where, if you're under his protection, no one will dare bother you. If he's claimed you publicly like this, Sophia, he's put his reputation on the line. That means something in this world. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet office, processing. I'd agreed to let Dominic help me, but I hadn't fully considered what that meant in practical terms. He wasn't just some wealthy landlord doing a good deed. He was someone with real power, the kind that came with implications I barely understood. A knock on the back door startled me from my thoughts. Marco Vitelli stood there, the same man who'd called me earlier. Up close, he was massive, easily 6'4", built like someone who could break you in half but chose not to. His expression was professionally neutral. "Miss Reeves, Mr. Santoro asked me to deliver this." He handed me a sleek black cell phone, still in its packaging. "Your current phone number is compromised. Mr. Cohen has been calling from multiple numbers trying to reach you. This one is secure, registered to one of our companies. Your contacts have been transferred." I stared at the phone. He had access to my contacts? Mr. Santoro has resources. Marco's expression didn't change. He wanted to make the transition as smooth as possible. "Your old number has been disconnected." The efficiency of it should have been alarming. Instead, I felt a wave of relief. Bradley had been calling non-stop since the post went live. 17 missed calls before I'd blocked him, then more from unknown numbers. "There's also this." Marco handed me a folder. "Background on Mr. Cohen that you might find useful, and a restraining order that's been expedited. You'll need to sign it, and a judge will review it tomorrow morning. Given the documentation we've provided, approval is highly likely." I opened the folder. The first page was a timeline of Bradley's harassment, dates and incidents documented with disturbing precision. The second page was financial information. Apparently, Bradley's successful marketing career was actually his father's company, where he worked sporadically, contributing little. The third page made my blood run cold. "He's done this before," I whispered, reading through complaints from 2 other ex-girlfriends. Similar patterns. Love bombing, gradual control, emotional abuse, then harassment after the relationship ended. Neither woman had pursued legal action beyond initial police reports that went nowhere. "Mr. Santoro thought you should know you're not alone," Marco said quietly, "and that this behavior has been enabled for too long." "How did he get all this information?" "It's better not to ask those questions, Miss Reeves." Marco's tone was gentle but firm. "What matters is that you now have documentation that will stand up in court. Bradley Cohen won't be able to contact you, come near you, or post about you without facing serious legal consequences." I looked up at him. "Why is Dominic doing all this? And don't tell me it's just about the neighborhood." Marco's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Mr. Santoro's sister, Chiara, was in an abusive relationship for 3 years. By the time she found the courage to leave, the man had isolated her completely, from family, friends, any support system. When she finally came home, she was a shell of who she'd been." "What happened to the man?" "He had an accident." Marco's voice was flat, emotionless. "Fell down some stairs, multiple times, learned to walk again eventually, but he never went near Chiara again." The implication hung in the air between us. I should have been horrified. Instead, I felt a dark satisfaction that someone had finally made that man face consequences. "Mr. Santoro sees Chiara in every woman trapped in situations like hers," Marco continued. He couldn't save his sister from the initial pain, but he can help others before they reach that breaking point. When he saw Mr. Cohen's post, when he realized you'd been trying to get help through official channels and been ignored, it was personal for him. And the marriage claim? Improvisation, as he said, but effective. Marco's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. Mr. Cohen has been trying to reach Mr. Santoro for the past 3 hours, through mutual acquaintances, business contacts, anyone who might have a connection. He's been ignored completely. The message is clear. You're under protection, and he's not significant enough to negotiate about it. A knock on the front door interrupted us. Marco tensed immediately, his hand moving to his jacket in a way that suggested a weapon. "Stay here," he ordered, moving toward the front with surprising quietness for such a large man. Through the office doorway, I could see him check the front windows, then relax fractionally. He opened the door to reveal Dominic, carrying 2 paper bags that smelled incredible. "I thought you might not have eaten," Dominic said, spotting me in the doorway. "And I know you usually work late on Wednesdays." How did he know my schedule? The surveillance, obviously. I should have been more disturbed by that. Marco excused himself, stepping outside to give us privacy. Dominic set the bags on one of the cafe tables and began unpacking containers: pasta carbonara, fresh bread, salad, and tiramisu from Lombardi's, the upscale Italian restaurant 3 blocks away. "You didn't have to do this," I said, even as my stomach growled traitorously. I'd been too anxious to eat all day. I wanted to. He pulled out a chair. "And we should talk about next steps." I sat, accepting the plate he prepared for me. The carbonara was perfect, creamy, rich, exactly what I needed. We ate in silence for a few minutes before Dominic spoke again. "Bradley's been trying to contact me," he said, "through intermediaries. He wants to apologize for the misunderstanding and clear the air." "What did you tell him?" "Nothing. I don't negotiate with men like him." Dominic set his fork down. "But I wanted you to know he's escalating. The public humiliation of having to delete his post, combined with everyone now knowing you've upgraded, as the comments say, it's wounded his ego significantly." "You think he'll retaliate?" "I think he'll try." Dominic's expression was serious. "Which is why I need to be honest with you about what accepting my help actually means." My appetite faded. "I'm listening." "I'm not just a landlord, Sophia." He used my first name deliberately, the intimacy of it sending a small shiver through me. "My family has been in New York for 4 generations, and we've built our influence through, let's call them morally complex business dealings." "You're in the Mafia." I said it plainly, needing to hear it confirmed. "That's the dramatic term. The reality is more complicated. Legitimate businesses mixed with operations that exist in legal gray areas. Protection services, dispute resolution, ensuring the neighborhood remains stable." He met my eyes. "I've never claimed to be a saint, but I do have standards. No drugs, no trafficking, nothing that preys on the vulnerable. We provide services the legitimate system fails to provide." "Like restraining orders that actually get enforced." "Exactly." He leaned forward. "By associating yourself with me publicly, by letting me claim you as my wife, you've entered a world where reputation and perception are currency. Bradley now knows that harassing you means challenging me. Most people would back down immediately. But Bradley's not most people. His father has money and connections, not as significant as mine, but enough to make him feel protected." Dominic paused. "I need you to understand that this could get complicated. There might be confrontations. Your life might be scrutinized. People will make assumptions about who you are and why you're with me." I set my fork down, appetite gone completely. "What kind of assumptions?" "That you're a mistress, or someone seeking status through association, or that you're involved in the family business." His voice was gentle but honest. The truth, that I'm helping you because it's the right thing to do, won't occur to most people. They'll create narratives that make sense to them. So I trade Bradley's harassment for everyone else's judgment. No, Dominic's voice was firm. You trade Bradley's harassment for protection, for resources, for the power to live your life without fear. The judgment exists either way. People were already judging you based on his post. At least, now you have someone standing beside you when they do. I studied his face, searching for deception or hidden motives. What I found was the same determination I'd seen earlier, mixed with something that looked like genuine concern. There's something else, I said slowly. Something you're not telling me. He smiled, surprised and approving. You're perceptive. Yes, there's more. Tell me. Dominic stood, moving to the window that looked out on Mulberry Street. 2 weeks ago, Bradley's father, Richard Cohen, attempted to purchase this building. He offered triple the market value with the intention of converting it to luxury condos. When I declined, he began making inquiries about my other properties, my business operations, looking for leverage. My stomach dropped. You think Bradley's harassment of me is connected to his father's business interests? I think Richard Cohen doesn't like being told no, and I think Bradley inherited that trait. Dominic turned back to me. The post last night might have been personal vindictiveness on Bradley's part, but the timing, combined with his father's recent actions, suggests it could be something more calculated. They're trying to get to you through me. Possibly. Which is why the marriage claim was strategic beyond just protecting you from Bradley. His expression was serious. If they think you're genuinely important to me, they can't use you as leverage without serious consequences. But if they think it's fake, if Bradley convinces his father this is just some chivalrous gesture, they might push harder. So we need people to believe it's real. We need people to believe you're untouchable, Dominic corrected. Whether through marriage or simply association, you need to be seen as under my protection in a way that makes targeting you more trouble than it's worth. I stood, needing to move, to process. This is so far beyond what I thought I was agreeing to. I know, which is why I'm giving you an out. Dominic moved closer, not crowding but present. You can walk away right now. I'll still get you the restraining order. Still make sure Bradley leaves you alone through legal channels. You'll be safe without being pulled into my world. But it will take longer, be messier. And there's no guarantee his father won't find other ways to apply pressure, to this building, to Mrs. Marcello's business, to you indirectly. He paused. With me, you have immediate, comprehensive protection. Without me, you have the legal system that's already failed you once. It was a choice, but not really, because going back to relying on restraining orders that might not be enforced, on police who'd already dismissed my complaints, on a system that protected men like Bradley, that wasn't safety. That was just a different kind of vulnerability. What would this actually look like? I asked. If I agree to keep doing this? Public appearances together. Enough to establish the relationship is real. Dinner a few times a week. Attending events. Being seen around the neighborhood. Dominic's voice was carefully neutral. I'd assign security to you. Discreetly, but present. Marco would be your primary contact for any concerns or threats. And you'd have access to resources, legal and otherwise, to handle any situation that arises. And in private? Whatever you're comfortable with. This doesn't have to be real in any sense beyond the public performance. He met my eyes. I'm not asking for anything intimate, Sophia. I'm offering protection and partnership, not demanding payment. The sincerity in his voice decided it. Okay, I said. But I need this to stay professional. Clear boundaries, honest communication, and when it's over. When it's over, You walk away free and clear, Dominic finished. No obligations, no debt. You have my word. He extended his hand again, and this time, when I shook it, it felt less like a business deal and more like a partnership. So what happens now? I asked. Now we establish the narrative publicly. Dominic pulled out his phone. There's a charity gala Friday night at the Plaza, foundation fundraiser for domestic violence prevention, ironically appropriate. I'd like you to attend as my wife. Full formal event, lots of cameras, exactly the kind of public appearance that will cement the story. I don't have anything to wear to a Plaza gala. You will by Friday. His smile was slightly mischievous. My sister Kiara is roughly your size and has excellent taste. She's been looking for an excuse to go shopping, and when I told her about the situation, she insisted on helping. You told your sister about this? Kiara knows me well enough to know when I'm invested in something beyond business. Dominic's expression softened. She wants to meet the woman who's got me improvising marriage announcements on Instagram. I think you'll like her. Thursday morning brought the first test of our arrangement. I arrived at Cafe Marcello at 5:30 a.m. to prep for the breakfast rush, same as always. But this time, there was already someone waiting. A woman in her mid-30s, impeccably dressed in casual elegance, with the same dark hair and brown eyes as Dominic. You must be Sophia. She smiled warmly, extending her hand. I'm Chiara Santoro. My brother asked me to introduce myself before ambushing you with shopping plans. Up close, I could see the resemblance to Dominic, the sharp features, the confident bearing. But where Dominic carried an edge of danger, Chiara radiated warmth that felt genuine rather than performed. It's nice to meet you, I said, unlocking the door. Though I should warn you, I have approximately zero experience with plaza-level events. Perfect. I love a challenge. Chiara followed me inside, immediately making herself at home. Dominic mentioned you usually work until 3, so I cleared my afternoon. We'll hit the boutiques in Soho. I know the owners. They'll treat us well. As I moved through the familiar routine of opening the cafe, Chiara perched on a stool at the counter, watching with interest. My brother doesn't do things like this, she said after a moment. The public claim, the protection, the personal investment. He helps people, yes, but always at arm's length. Professional. You're different. I paused in grinding coffee beans. I don't know why. I do. Chiara's smile was knowing. You didn't ask for his help. You didn't try to leverage his power or manipulate him into action. You were just someone trying to handle an impossible situation alone, and he recognized that. Dominic can't resist someone who refuses to be a victim but needs help anyway. I didn't refuse to be a victim, I said quietly. I just didn't have any other choice. That's exactly what I mean. Chiara stood, moving to help me set up the espresso machine without being asked. Survival isn't the same as thriving, but it's the foundation for it. You survived your relationship with Bradley. Now Dominic's giving you the resources to thrive instead. We worked in companionable silence for a while. When the first customers started arriving at 6:30, Chiara transitioned seamlessly into helping serve, chatting with regulars like she'd been working there for years. Mrs. Marcello arrived at 8:00, took one look at Chiara, and pulled me aside. That's Chiara Santoro, she hissed. Dominic's sister. Sophia, what exactly is happening? Exactly what I told you, I said. An arrangement to help with Bradley. Chiara's helping me prepare for a public event tomorrow night. Mrs. Marcello studied my face for a long moment. You like him. Dominic. I barely know him. That's not what I asked. Her expression was gentle. Be careful, Tesoro. Men like Dominic Santoro. They live in a different world than us. A dangerous world. I know. Do you? She squeezed my hand. Just remember, when this arrangement ends, you still have to live in the real world. Don't lose yourself trying to exist in his. Her words haunted me through the morning rush. She was right to be concerned. In less than 48 hours, I'd gone from managing a cafe and trying to forget my ex-boyfriend to being claimed as the wife of one of the most powerful men in Little Italy. At 3 p.m., I changed in the cafe bathroom, swapping my work clothes for jeans and a sweater. Chiara was waiting outside in a sleek black car that probably cost more than I'd make in 5 years. "Ready for the full Cinderella treatment?" she asked as I slid into the passenger seat. "I feel ridiculous." "You'll feel even more ridiculous when you see what I've picked out." Chiara's grin was infectious. "But trust me, by tomorrow night, you'll walk into that gala looking like you were born to be there." The boutique in Soho was the kind of place I'd normally walk past without looking, knowing nothing inside was remotely in my price range. But Chiara swept in like she owned it, and immediately the staff descended with champagne and warm welcomes. "Chiara, we got the pieces you requested." A tall woman with an elegant gray bob approached, kissing both of Chiara's cheeks. "And this must be Sophia. Dominic's description was accurate. You're going to look stunning." 3 hours later, I stood in front of a three-way mirror, barely recognizing myself. The dress was midnight blue, almost black in certain lights. Fitted bodice with an elegant neckline that showcased my collarbones without being revealing, flowing skirt that moved like water. The color did something magical to my skin tone, made my dark hair look richer, my eyes brighter. "Perfect," Chiara breathed. "Sophia, you're gorgeous." I turned slowly, watching the fabric catch the light. "It's too much?" "It's exactly enough." She appeared beside me in the mirror. "Tomorrow night, you're going to walk into that gala on my brother's arm, and everyone will understand why he claimed you. Not because of what you look like, but because of how you carry yourself." "I don't know how to carry myself in a dress like this." "Yes, you do." Chiara squeezed my shoulder. "You've been carrying yourself with dignity and strength through an impossible situation. This is just different packaging for the same person." We left with the dress, shoes, a clutch, and jewelry that Chiara insisted was borrowed from the family collection. As we drove back toward Little Italy, she grew more serious. "I need to tell you something about tomorrow night," she said. "About what to expect." "Okay. People are going to be watching you, judging you. Some will be curious, some will be hostile, most will be calculating, trying to figure out what your connection to Dominic means for their own interests." She paused. "It won't be comfortable. I'm used to being judged. Not like this. These people, they'll smile to your face and dissect you behind your back. They'll look for weaknesses, for signs you don't belong, for proof this is fake." Chiara glanced at me. "Bradley will probably try to make an appearance. His father moves in these circles. They'll be invited." My stomach dropped. "Dominic didn't mention that." "Because he didn't want you to panic. But you should be prepared." She reached over and squeezed my hand briefly. "Here's what you need to know. Stay close to Dominic. Follow his lead on social interactions, and don't let anyone see you rattled. They'll test you. With questions, with comments, with loaded compliments designed to make you defensive. Just smile, be polite, and remember you don't owe them anything." That sounds terrifying. It is. Chiara's smile was sympathetic. "But you won't be alone. I'll be there. Marco will be nearby, and Dominic won't let anyone cross lines. You're under our protection, which means you're family, and we take care of family." That night, alone in my apartment, I tried on the dress again. Stood in front of my mirror and practiced holding myself the way Chiara had demonstrated. Shoulders back, chin up, expression serene. I looked like someone else. Someone confident and untouchable. Someone who belonged on the arm of a man like Dominic Santoro. But underneath the beautiful dress and borrowed jewelry, I was still just Sophia Reeves. Still the girl who'd spent 4 years believing she wasn't good enough, who'd let a man like Bradley convince her that being alone was worse than being diminished. My phone buzzed. The new one Marco had given me. A text from an unknown number. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Marco will pick you up at 6:30 to allow time for hair and makeup at the hotel. Don't be nervous. You're going to be magnificent. Die. I stared at the message, something warm unfurling in my chest. When had I stopped being Miss Reeves and become someone he texted casually? When had this stopped being just an arrangement and started feeling like something more? Mrs. Marcello's warning echoed. Don't lose yourself trying to exist in his world. Too late, I thought, watching myself in the mirror. I was already halfway gone. The Plaza Hotel glittered like something out of a dream, all gold leaf and crystal chandeliers, and the kind of old money elegance that made my borrowed dress feel suddenly inadequate. Marco had picked me up at 6:30 exactly, his expression carefully neutral as he took in my transformation. The hair and makeup team Chiara had sent to the hotel suite worked with professional efficiency, turning my nervous energy into something that looked like polish. Now, standing in the plaza's marble lobby at 6:58 p.m., I felt like an imposter waiting to be discovered. Miss Reeves. Dominic's voice came from behind me, and when I turned, my breath caught. He wore a black tuxedo that fit him like it had been designed specifically for his body, which it probably had. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and those brown eyes that had been warm and concerned in the cafe now carried the weight of power and authority. He was devastating. Sophia, he corrected himself, moving closer. His gaze traveled over me slowly, appreciation clear in his expression. You look breathtaking. Chiara has good taste. Chiara chose well, but the dress is just fabric. He offered his arm. You're what makes it beautiful. Heat crept up my neck as I took his arm, hyper-aware of every point where we touched. The expensive fabric of his jacket, the solid strength of his bicep, the way he adjusted his stride to match mine in the heels Chiara had insisted were surprisingly comfortable once you get used to them. They were not comfortable. The ballroom was already filling with New York's elite, politicians, business leaders, society wives dripping in. Jewelry that could fund a small country. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres, and a string quartet played something classical and soothing in the corner. Remember, Dominic murmured as we paused at the entrance, you belong here as much as anyone, more than most, because you've actually earned your place in the world rather than inheriting it. Before I could respond, Chiara appeared in a stunning emerald gown, her smile bright and genuine. There you are. Sophia, you look amazing. She kissed both my cheeks, then her brother's. The Castellanos are asking about you, Nick, and the Russos want an introduction to your mysterious wife. Let them wonder a bit longer. Dominic's hand settled on the small of my back, proprietary and protective. We'll make the rounds in a moment. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. A photographer approached, camera raised. Mr. Santoro, may I get a photo for the Foundation's social media? Dominic pulled me closer, his arm around my waist. I leaned into him, letting my hand rest on his chest as the camera flashed. To anyone watching, we looked like exactly what we were pretending to be, a couple completely comfortable in each other's space. The photographer moved on, and I started to step back, but Dominic's arm tightened slightly. Stay close, he said quietly. Bradley and his father just arrived. 3:00. My heart stuttered. I turned my head casually and spotted them immediately, Bradley in a tuxedo that didn't fit quite right, his father beside him looking smug and calculating. Richard Cohen was in his 60s, silver-haired and distinguished in the way only old money could achieve. Both of them were staring directly at us. They're coming over, I whispered, panic rising. Good. Dominic's voice was calm, almost pleased. Let them come. Remember, you're untouchable now. Bradley approached first, his father trailing slightly behind. Up close, I could see the tension in Bradley's jaw, the anger he was barely containing beneath a veneer of civility. Sophia, his voice was tight. You look different. Bradley. I kept my tone neutral, professional. Mr. Cohen. Richard Cohen's eyes swept over me with calculating assessment. So you're the mysterious Mrs. Santoro. Bradley mentioned you two had a history. Ancient history? Dominic interjected smoothly, his arm still around my waist. I'm sure Mr. Cohen mentioned that to you, Richard. How he made some unfortunate social media choices that required correction. Bradley's face flushed. That was a misunderstanding. I was trying to reach out to Sophia, to apologize for how things ended, and by posting a cruel photo with humiliating commentary, I found my voice, stronger than I expected. That's an interesting definition of apology. I had too much to drink, made a stupid joke. Bradley's eyes pleaded with me like he genuinely expected sympathy. You know how I get sometimes. It didn't mean anything. It meant enough for you to delete it the moment someone with actual power pushed back, Dominic said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Interesting how your convictions disappear when there are consequences. Richard Cohen's expression hardened. Mr. Santoro, I'm sure we can discuss this like civilized men. Perhaps my son's approach was crude, but surely the response was somewhat disproportionate. Disproportionate would be doing to your son what he did to Sophia. Dominic's smile didn't reach his eyes. Publicly humiliating him, mocking his appearance, suggesting he's worthless because he's single. I simply corrected the narrative with facts. Facts? Bradley's voice rose slightly before his father's hand on his arm silenced him. You're not even married. This is all some kind of elaborate. Careful. The single word from Dominic carried enough weight to stop Bradley mid-sentence. What you're about to accuse my wife of is slander, and I take threats to her reputation very seriously. The tension crackling between them was almost visible. People nearby had stopped their conversations, watching the confrontation with poorly disguised interest. Gentlemen, a new voice interrupted, an older woman in a magnificent silver gown, dripping with diamonds. Surely this is neither the time nor place for such discussions. This is a charity event after all. Mrs. Castellano. Dominic's demeanor shifted immediately, respect evident. You're absolutely right. My apologies for the disturbance. The woman, clearly someone important in this world, turned her attention to me. And you must be the young woman everyone's been whispering about. Sophia, is it? Yes, ma'am. I extended my hand, which she took with a firm grip. Maria Castellano. I've known Dominic since he was in short pants causing trouble in his father's restaurant. Her eyes twinkled. Welcome to the circus, dear. I hope you're prepared for the scrutiny that comes with associating with the Santoro name. I'm learning, I said honestly. Good. The ones who pretend it's easy are usually lying. She glanced at Bradley and his father with thinly veiled disdain. Though I imagine you've had practice dealing with difficult men. Come, let me introduce you to some people worth knowing. She swept me away from Dominic, Bradley, and the Cohen patriarch with the authority of someone used to being obeyed. As we moved through the crowd, I glanced back to see Dominic and Richard Cohen in quiet but intense conversation, Marco hovering nearby with the watchful stillness of a guard dog. Don't worry about Dominic, Maria said, following my gaze. He can handle Richard Cohen with one hand tied behind his back. You, however, are about to face something more challenging. The society wives who will determine whether you're acceptable or not. The next hour was a blur of introductions, careful conversations, and questions designed to seem innocent while actually probing for weakness. Maria Castellano guided me through it with the skill of someone who'd spent decades navigating these waters. Where did you meet Dominic? Through the cafe I manage. He owns the building. How romantic. A landlord and tenant love story. The woman's smile was sharp. Though I imagine the rent negotiations are interesting. I pay market rate? I said evenly. Same as I did before we met. And your family? Are they in New York? My parents passed when I was younger. It's just me. Sympathy flickered across several faces. Genuine or performed, I couldn't tell. But the questions kept coming, each one carefully calculated to reveal something about my background, my intentions, my worthiness. Through it all, I maintained the serene expression Kiara had coached me on, smiled, answered honestly when I could, deflected when I couldn't. Let them think what they wanted, because their opinions couldn't touch me as long as Dominic's protection held. Dinner was a multi-course affair, each plate more elaborate than the last. I was seated beside Dominic at a table that included the Castellanos, two other prominent families whose names I immediately forgot, and Chiara, with a date who seemed utterly besotted with her. "You're doing beautifully," Dominic murmured during a lull in conversation, his hand finding mine under the table. "I know this isn't easy." Mrs. Castellano asked if we're planning children soon. I whispered back. I panicked and said we're focusing on my cafe partnership first. His thumb brushed across my knuckles. Perfect answer. Ambitious and independent. Exactly what people should believe about you. Is any of this real to them? I asked quietly. Or is it all just performance and calculation? Both. Dominic's brown eyes held mine. They perform because they're calculating. But underneath that, some of them have genuine relationships, real affection. You just have to be careful about who you trust. And who do you trust? Chiara, Marco, Mrs. Castellano, actually. She was friends with my mother. He paused. And I'm starting to trust you. The admission caught me off guard. Before I could respond, the lights dimmed for the evening's program. Speeches about domestic violence prevention, testimonials from survivors, a silent auction for charity. I found myself actually listening, moved by the stories of women who'd escaped situations like mine, who'd found the courage to leave, to rebuild, to survive. The foundation Dominic supported had helped dozens of them with legal fees, safe housing, job training. This is what you do, I said softly as another speaker took the stage. This is why. My sister wasn't the only woman in my life affected by abuse, Dominic said quietly. My mother, my aunt, friends' wives, daughters, sisters. I grew up seeing how the system failed them, how money and power protected abusers while victims suffered. If I have that same money and power, I can at least use it to balance the scales. I squeezed his hand, understanding him better in that moment than I had in all our previous conversations. After the program ended and people returned to socializing, I excused myself to the restroom. Chiara immediately stood to accompany me. Apparently, wealthy women didn't travel alone, even for bathroom breaks. "You're handling this remarkably well," she said, as we navigated the corridor outside the ballroom. "Half the women in there are convinced you're secretly a socialite playing at being normal, and the other half are trying to figure out what Dominic sees in you." What does he see in me? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Chiara smiled knowingly. Someone real. Someone who doesn't want anything from him except to be left alone to live her life. Do you know how rare that is in our world? In the restroom, I took a moment to breathe, to center myself away from the constant scrutiny. The face in the mirror looked poised and elegant, nothing like the anxious cafe manager who'd opened Bradley's Instagram post 48 hours ago. When I emerged, Chiara was waiting, along with two women I didn't recognize. Both were elegant, mid-30s, watching me with expressions that made my skin prickle. "Sophia Santoro," one of them said, her tone pleasant but her eyes cold. "We've been dying to meet you properly. I'm Jennifer Morrison, and this is Alexis Chen. We went to college with Bradley Cohen." My stomach tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. "Nice to meet you." "We were so surprised by Dominic's post," Alexis continued. "Bradley never mentioned you were seeing anyone, let alone married. The timeline seems so sudden." "When you know," I said lightly, moving to walk past them. Jennifer stepped slightly into my path. "It's just that Bradley's been so heartbroken since you two split, going on about how he made mistakes, how he wanted to make things right. And then suddenly, you're married to one of the most powerful men in New York?" She tilted her head. "It seems almost convenient." "Are you suggesting something?" I asked, letting ice creep into my voice. "We're just saying it looks suspicious," Alexis said. "Like maybe this marriage is more about revenge than romance, using Dominic to get back at Bradley for moving on." Kiara moved beside me, her presence suddenly sharp and dangerous. "Ladies, I think you should choose your next words very carefully." "We're just concerned," Jennifer said quickly. "For Bradley, and honestly for Dominic. He's a good man who deserves genuine affection, not someone using him for protection or status." Something in me snapped. The hours of performance, of swallowing down responses, of being judged and assessed and questioned, it all crystallized into clarity. "You want to know the truth?" I said quietly. "Bradley Cohen spent 4 years systematically destroying my self-esteem. He controlled what I ate, what I wore, who I saw. He isolated me from friends, made me believe I was lucky he tolerated me. And when I finally found the courage to leave after catching him cheating, he stalked me for months. He came to my work, called from different numbers, sent messages telling me I'd never find anyone else." Both women had gone pale, but I continued. "So, when he posted that photo, that cruel caption designed to humiliate me publicly, yes, I accepted help from someone who offered it. Someone who saw a woman being harassed and decided to do something about it instead of looking away like everyone else did." I stepped closer. "If that makes me an opportunist in your eyes, I genuinely don't care. Because your opinion means nothing compared to my safety and peace of mind." "Sophia," Jennifer started. "Mrs. Santoro," I corrected coldly. "And this conversation is over." Kiara's smile was vicious as we walked away. "Oh, I like you. Dominic's going to love hearing about this." When we returned to the ballroom, Dominic took one look at my face and stood immediately. "What happened?" "Just some of Bradley's college friends trying to intimidate her," Kiara said cheerfully. "Sophia handled it beautifully. Remind me to teach you the family history of politely destroying people who cross us." Dominic's expression darkened. "Who?" "It's handled," I said, touching his arm. "I don't need you to fight every battle for me." Something shifted in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or approval. "No, you don't." "But I will anyway." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Dancing. Dominic's hand firm on my waist as we moved across the floor with surprising grace. More conversations, more scrutiny, more performance. Through it all, Dominic stayed close, his presence solid and grounding. Finally, mercifully, it was time to leave. In the car ride back to my apartment, I kicked off the beautiful torture devices Kiara had called shoes and let my head fall back against the seat. "Tired?" Dominic asked. "Exhausted. How do you do this regularly?" "Practice. And knowing most of it is meaningless theater." He paused. "You were magnificent tonight, Sophia. You belonged in that room more than half the people there." I felt like I was going to throw up the entire time. No one could tell. His hand found mine in the darkness of the car. "Thank you for doing this. I know it wasn't easy." "Bradley was watching us all night," I said quietly. I could feel it. Like he was waiting for me to mess up, to prove this was all fake. Let him watch. Let him see exactly what he lost. Dominic's voice was firm. You're not his anymore, Sophia. You're not anyone's but your own. The car pulled up outside my building in Queens, so different from the plaza's elegance. Dominic walked me to my door despite my protests, Marco waiting discreetly by the car. Get some rest, Dominic said at my threshold. You've earned it. Dominic? I turned back. What you said? About starting to trust me. I think I'm starting to trust you too. His smile was genuine, warm. Good. Because this is just the beginning. After he left, I stood in my small apartment still wearing the magnificent dress, looking at my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back looked different, stronger, like someone who'd walked through fire and come out tempered rather than burned. My phone buzzed, the new one. A text from a number I didn't recognize. You looked beautiful tonight. Enjoy it while it lasts. He'll get bored of charity cases eventually. B. I stared at the message, then deleted it without responding. Bradley could send all the texts he wanted. He couldn't touch me anymore. I had changed, and there was no going back. The text messages from Bradley started the next morning and didn't stop. You think you're special now? He's using you. Everyone at the gala was laughing at you behind your back. When he dumps you, don't come crying to me. I blocked the number. He got another one. Blocked that. Another appeared. By noon on Saturday, I'd blocked 7 different numbers, and the messages had escalated from petty to threatening. You made me look like a fool. There will be consequences. That one I forwarded to Marco, who called within minutes. Miss Reeves, Mr. Santoro wants you to come to his residence. Today. Now if possible. His voice was tense. Bradley Cohen violated the restraining order. He was spotted outside your building this morning at 6 a.m. The police have been notified, but Mr. Santoro would prefer you somewhere more secure while this is handled. My hands shook as I packed a bag. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop with all the cafe's financial records. The restraining order had been granted Friday morning, which meant Bradley was now officially breaking the law, and apparently didn't care. Marco arrived 20 minutes later with another security team member, both of them doing a thorough sweep of my apartment before escorting me downstairs. The black SUV felt like a cocoon, safe and separate from the world outside. Dominic's residence wasn't the penthouse I'd expected. Instead, we drove to an elegant brownstone in the West Village, tree-lined street, discreet wealth, the kind of place that whispered old money rather than shouting it. Dominic met me at the door himself, still in casual clothes, jeans and a black sweater that made him look younger, more approachable. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I should have anticipated Bradley would escalate after last night. This isn't your fault. I followed him inside, taking in the beautiful interior, exposed brick, hardwood floors, art that looked original and expensive. He's always been like this. Can't handle rejection, can't handle being told no. He's about to learn a very permanent lesson about both. Dominic's voice was cold. The restraining order violation is being processed. His father's lawyers are scrambling. And I've made it clear through certain channels that continuing to harass you will have consequences beyond legal ones. I set my bag down in the foyer. What kind of consequences? The kind where Richard Cohen's business interests suddenly face unexpected difficulties. Permits delayed, contracts questioned, partnerships reconsidered. He moved closer. I don't make idle threats, Sophia. Bradley crossed a line. His family will pay attention now. I don't want you to destroy people because of me. I'm not destroying anyone. I'm applying proportional pressure until they correct their behavior. Dominic's hand came up to cup my face gently. You've spent so long minimizing what was done to you, convincing yourself you don't deserve protection. But you do, and I'm going to make sure you get it. The tenderness in his touch, the certainty in his voice, it broke something open inside me. Why? I whispered. Why do you care this much? Because watching you walk into that gala last night, seeing you hold your head high while people judged and questioned you, seeing you stand up to those women in the hallway. He paused, searching for words. You're extraordinary, Sophia. And somewhere in the past week, this stopped being about helping someone in need and became about being near someone I genuinely admire. My breath caught. Dominic. I know. This was supposed to be an arrangement. Professional boundaries. Clear ending point. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. But I don't want an arrangement anymore. I want something real. This is happening too fast, I said, even as I leaned into his touch. A week ago, I was just your tenant. Now I'm pretending to be your wife, and staying in your house and feeling something you're afraid to name. He finished softly. I know. I feel it too. Before I could respond, Kiara's voice called from deeper in the house. Nick, is Sophia here? I brought lunch. The moment broke. Dominic stepped back, professional distance sliding into place, but his eyes stayed on mine with unmistakable intent. Chiara appeared carrying bags from an expensive Italian deli, her expression shifting from cheerful to concerned when she saw my face. What happened? Bradley violated the restraining order, Dominic said. Sophia's staying here until the situation is resolved. Good. This place is a fortress. Chiara set the bags on the dining table and started unpacking. Also, you should see social media. Last night's photos are everywhere. The two of you dancing? Chef's kiss. People are losing their minds trying to figure out your love story. She pulled out her phone, showing me Instagram. The official gala photographer had posted a series of images, Dominic and me on the dance floor, his hand on my waist, both of us looking at each other rather than the camera. The intimacy captured in those photos made my chest tight. The caption read, Dominic Santoro and his wife Sophia, one of the evening's most elegant couples. Gala for good. Relationship goals. The comments were a mix of admiration, speculation, and jealousy. She's gorgeous. Where did she come from? Dominic Santoro is married? My heart is broken. They look so in love. This is what real partnership looks like. Bradley had commented from yet another new account. Fake. All of it. She's a liar and a gold digger. The comment had been deleted by Instagram for harassment, but not before dozens of people had responded defending me. The narrative is shifting, Chiara said, scrolling through more posts. You're not the woman Bradley claimed anymore. You're Dominic's wife, a successful businesswoman, someone with your own story. He can scream fake all he wants, but people aren't listening. My phone buzzed. Mrs. Marcello calling for the third time that morning. I should take this, I said, stepping into the next room. Sophia. Mrs. Marcello's voice was frantic. A man came to the cafe this morning, said he was Bradley's father, wanted to know about your relationship with Mr. Santoro. Started asking questions about the business, about our finances, about... What did you tell him? Nothing. I told him to leave, or I'd call the police. She paused. But Sophia, he scared me. The way he looked at everything, like he was calculating something. Ice settled in my stomach. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Marcello. This is my fault. Stop that. This isn't your fault. Her voice was firm. But you need to be careful. These Cohen men, they don't give up easily. And if they're coming after the cafe, they're trying to hurt you through me. After hanging up, I found Dominic in his office, already on the phone. He listened to my explanation of Richard Cohen's cafe visit, his expression darkening with each word. Marco, I need a security detail at Cafe Marcello, he said into his phone. Full coverage during business hours, discreet but visible. And pull Richard Cohen's file. I want to know every vulnerable point in his business empire. Yes. Now. He ended the call and turned to me. Mrs. Marcello won't be bothered again, and Richard Cohen is about to learn that threatening people under my protection was a catastrophic error in judgment. I don't want this to become a war. It already is. He chose that when he sent his son to harass you, when he tried to intimidate Mrs. Marcello, when he decided your safety was expendable. Dominic stood, moving around the desk. I'm ending it. Today. The next 3 hours were a masterclass in controlled power. Dominic made calls, spoke in Italian, in English, in the coded language of people who moved pieces on boards I couldn't see. Marco came and went with files, with updates, with confirmations that things were being handled. By 4 p.m., Richard Cohen was calling Dominic directly. Put it on speaker, Dominic said to Marco, who'd answered. I want Sophia to hear this. Richard Cohen's voice filled the office, tight with barely controlled rage. Santoro, we need to talk about this situation you've created. I didn't create anything. Your son did when he publicly humiliated my wife. Your wife? Richard's laugh was bitter. Everyone knows that's a fabrication, a convenient story to justify your interference in family business. Family business? Dominic's voice dropped dangerously low. Is that what you call your son stalking a woman for 8 months? Violating a restraining order? Or are you referring to your attempt to intimidate an elderly cafe owner this morning? Silence. Then, I was simply making inquiries about a business in my potential investment portfolio. You were threatening someone under my protection to pressure Sophia into compliance. Dominic leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen, Richard. Bradley will check himself into a treatment program for his behavior issues, therapy, anger management, whatever his lawyers recommend. He will have zero contact with Sophia, direct or indirect, and you will publicly apologize to Mrs. Marcello for this morning's intimidation attempt. Or what? Or the permits for your 3 development projects currently in review get permanently delayed, your construction company loses its city contracts, your business partners receive detailed information about your creative accounting practices. Dominic's smile was cold. And that's just the legal pressure. Would you like to know what happens through unofficial channels? Another long silence. When Richard spoke again, the rage had been replaced by calculation. You're bluffing. Try me. I have documentation of every boundary your family has crossed, every law broken, every threat made. I've been building this case for a week, Richard. You want to test whether I'm serious? What do you want? Your son in treatment. Zero contact with Sophia. A formal apology to Mrs. Marcello. Dominic paused. And you back off trying to acquire my properties. Permanently. This is about business? Richard sounded almost relieved. You could have just said you weren't interested in selling. This is about respect. Something your family seems to have forgotten. Dominic's voice hardened. You have 24 hours to agree to these terms. After that, the offer expires, and I proceed with destroying everything you've built. Your choice. He ended the call without waiting for a response. I sat frozen, processing what I'd just witnessed. The calm deployment of power, the precise calculation of pressure points, the absolute certainty that he would follow through. You weren't bluffing, I said quietly. Never. Dominic moved to where I sat, kneeling so we were eye level. Men like Richard Cohen only respond to force. You tried the legal system, tried being reasonable, tried asking nicely. None of it worked. So now I'm speaking a language he understands. By threatening to destroy his business. By showing him that continuing down this path costs more than backing down. His hands covered mine. He'll agree. Within 12 hours, Bradley will be enrolled in a program, and you'll never hear from either of them again. And if he doesn't agree, then I follow through. Every word. Dominic's brown eyes were steady. I told you I protect what's mine, Sophia. I meant it. I'm not actually yours, though. This whole thing was pretend. Is it? He moved closer. Because it stopped feeling pretend to me days ago. Maybe the moment I saw that photo Bradley posted and felt something I haven't felt in years. Genuine rage on someone else's behalf. Or maybe it was watching you walk into that gala like you owned the room despite being terrified. Or maybe it was right now, seeing you process that I'm willing to wage war for your peace of mind. My heart hammered. Dominic, I'm not asking you to make this real right now. I know it's too fast, too complicated, too much. His thumbs brushed across my knuckles. But I'm asking you to consider the possibility that what started as protection has become something neither of us expected. I'm scared, I admitted, of feeling this much this quickly, of trusting someone with power after Bradley used his to hurt me. I know, and I'm not Bradley. Dominic's voice was gentle but firm. I will never use what I have to diminish you, only to protect you, to support you, to help you build the life you deserve. Before I could respond, my phone rang. An unknown number, but when I answered, Mrs. Marcello's voice came through. Sophia, you won't believe what just happened. Richard Cohen just left the cafe. Came in person, apologized for this morning, said there had been a misunderstanding. She sounded stunned. What did you do? I looked at Dominic, who was watching me with quiet satisfaction. I didn't do anything, but I know someone who did. 3 months later, I stood in Cafe Marcello's newly renovated dining room, reviewing the partnership papers Mrs. Marcello had just signed. 30% ownership, officially mine. The down payment had come from my savings, supplemented by a loan from Dominic at terms any bank would have envied. This is real, I said, still not quite believing it. Very real. Mrs. Marcello pulled me into a hug. You've earned this, Tesoro. Every bit of it. The cafe had thrived since the gala. Publicity from Dominic's social media posts had brought new customers, and my business degree, completed online through a program Dominic had connected me with, had helped streamline operations. Bradley was in his 3rd month of court-ordered therapy, living in California with his mother. The restraining order was permanent. His father had backed off completely after Dominic's not-so-subtle pressure campaign. And Dominic... The door chimed. Speak of the devil. He entered carrying flowers. Not roses, but wildflowers in colors that reminded me of the dress I'd worn to the gala. He'd learned my preferences, my tastes, the small details that made gestures meaningful rather than expensive. Congratulations, partner. He kissed my cheek, then Mrs. Marcello's. The new menu looks exceptional. Sophia's ideas, Mrs. Marcello said proudly. She has vision, this one. After she left to check on the kitchen, Dominic pulled me close. How does it feel? Being a business owner? Terrifying, exciting. Right. I looked up at him. Thank you for believing I could do this. I didn't make you capable, Sophia. I just removed some obstacles. His hand cupped my face. You did this yourself. We'd been officially dating for 6 weeks, taking it slow despite the intensity of how we'd met. Real dates, real conversations, building something genuine from the foundation of our fake marriage. Last week he'd introduced me to his mother. Next month, we were visiting his sister who'd moved to Boston. The Instagram account, Dominic Santoro, had one photo now. That image from the gala, with an updated caption. Started as protection, became partnership, ended up being love. 1 year since I met the woman who changed everything. The comments were mostly supportive. Bradley had tried to post something bitter and been immediately shut down by his own followers. I have something for you, Dominic said, pulling a small box from his jacket. My heart jumped. Dominic, if that's... It's not a ring. Not yet. He opened it to reveal a delicate gold bracelet with a single charm, a tiny cafe cup. I thought you might want something to commemorate today. Your first day as an official business owner. Tears pricked my eyes as he fastened it around my wrist. It's perfect. You're perfect. He kissed me softly. And when I do eventually ask you to make the fake marriage real, I want you to know it's because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Not because of protection or arrangement or anything except genuine love. Eventually? I raised an eyebrow. I'm a patient man. I can wait until you're ready. His smile was warm. Though I hope you won't make me wait too long. I pulled him closer, kissing him with all the emotion I'd been holding back. When we broke apart, both breathless, I whispered against his lips. I love you too. Just so you know. I know. His arms tightened around me. I've known since you told off those women at the gala. Been waiting for you to catch up. That evening, I updated my own Instagram for the first time in months. A photo of the partnership papers, the new cafe menu, and the bracelet Dominic had given me. Caption: 1 year ago, someone tried to define me by my failures. Today, I'm defined by my choices. Thank you to everyone who believed I was more than one person's cruel narrative. Especially Aver to Dominic Santoro, who saw me when I'd forgotten how to see myself. The photo Bradley had posted was still out there somewhere, probably. But it didn't matter anymore. That wasn't my story. This was the cafe partnership, the real relationship built on respect. The life I'd constructed from the ashes of who I'd been when I was trying to be small enough for someone else's approval. My phone buzzed. Dominic, texting from across the cafe where he'd moved to give me space to work. Dinner tonight? My place. I'm cooking. What are you making? Something that won't poison you. Probably. I laughed, typing back, I'll bring dessert. And maybe stay over. Maybe? Definitely. Looking around the cafe, my cafe, partly mine now, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not just safety or protection or gratitude. Peace. Genuine, hard-won peace. And love. The kind that didn't ask me to be smaller or quieter or different. Just love. Real and true. And mine. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.